Right now, American college campuses are receiving massive amounts of federal funding. Yet, they have become ground zero for a wave of intense anti-Jewish and anti-Israel protests. But a stunning exchange at a recent congressional oversight hearing reveals a deeply troubling reality. When it comes to holding radicalized foreign students accountable, or addressing the campus departments fueling this hostility, the administrative class is completely dropping the ball. During a tense line of questioning, a U.S. Senator squared off with Mr. Rocking, a representative from the Nexus Task Force. What followed was a masterclass in bureaucratic dodging, and it exposes exactly why our universities are in a state of chaos. Let's look at the tape. The senator opened the floor by addressing a fundamental question of national sovereignty and campus safety. If a foreign student is in the United States on a student visa and commits an unlawful act of violence against a Jewish student, why are they still here? Surprisingly, Mr. Rocking stated that his organization does not have a position on canceling those visas, hiding behind a national strategy report. The senator immediately pushed back, calling out the sheer absurdity of the hesitation. Let's be entirely clear about the presenter's perspective here. Being a foreign student in the United States is a privilege, not a right. You are a guest of the United States. If you assault an American student on an American campus, you have violated the terms of your stay. The fact that a campus advocacy group has to think about whether violence warrants deportation tells you everything you need to know about the breakdown of institutional spine. When pinned down on why violent offenders shouldn't be sent packing, Rocking tried to split hairs, passing the buck to the Justice Department and immigration authorities. He argued that unless a broad statute is explicitly written into law covering all forms of discrimination, nothing can be done. But the senator wasn't buying it. He revealed that he has already aggressively urged Secretary of State Marco Rubio to utilize existing executive authority to revoke these visas immediately. Presenter commentary. This is an easy call. Writing an explicit, zero-tolerance condition into the visa process, stating that if you commit a violent assault on campus, you are gone, sends an unmistakable message. The hesitation from witness groups isn't about legal technicalities. It's a structural unwillingness to enforce consequences against radicalized actors. The debate then shifted to the root cause of this campus radicalization, the multimillion-dollar diversity, equity, and inclusion apparatus. The senator directly challenged Rocking to admit that classic DEI rhetoric, the language of intersectionality, oppressors versus oppressed, and colonizers, is being actively weaponized against Jewish students. The senator didn't just make an accusation, he brought concrete, terrifying receipts from major American universities. The DEI chair publicly issued statements labeling Israel a genocidal apartheid state. University of Washington, the official DEI office distributed emails declaring Israel an unlawful, oppressive, settler colonial apartheid state. Rutgers University, a DEI program coordinator, was caught explicitly screaming at Jewish students, "F you, colonizer. F you, Zionist." Instead of condemning these clear-cut examples of institutional harassment, Rocking pivoted, bringing up human rights organizations and the geopolitical situation in the West Bank. The senator had to cut him off as his time expired, forcing the conversation back to the actual topic, the toxic behavior of American university officials. When asked if we should condemn these DEI officials, no holds barred, full stop, no conditions, Rocking's solution was to suggest adding more training to existing DI programs. And that is where the ultimate divide lies. Watch how the senator ends it. Why are we talking about retraining a broken system? These aren't isolated incidents. These are taxpayer-funded departments, professors, and administrators weaponizing their official titles to target students. The presenter's perspective is clear. It is time to speak truth to power. You don't reform a department that tells students F you, colonizer. You eliminate the DEI apparatus entirely, pull their federal funding, and restore basic safety and academic integrity to our schools. I'm United States Senate Liv, breaking down the stories behind the headlines.
You say that you're not in favor of canceling visas for foreign students who commit unlawful acts against Jewish students?
I said at this time, Nexus does not have a position on that, the organization I work for. And then I went on to describe how in the national strategy, it doesn't talk about that, doesn't recommend that. And that was done in consultation with 1,000 leaders across the board and was supported by the ADL, AJC, JFNA, J Street, all of us.
So you don't think that's not a good idea? I mean, why would we permit a foreign student who's here on a student visa who commits an act of violence, an unlawful act against a Jewish student? Why wouldn't we say, sorry, but if you're going to commit acts of violence against Jewish students, Jewish Americans or foreign Jewish students, whomever, we're going to revoke your visa. I mean, you're going home.
So I think on that issue itself, I'm trying to think now. It's not, when you're talking about acts of violence and you're talking about actually breaking U.S. law towards students, that is criminal. That should be done through the Justice Department. When we're talking about deportation, that's immigration. So if there is a criminal investigation that leads to deportation, I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Well, I'm talking about student visas. They're here on visas. They're here on particular.
Doing that.
Well, sure, but why don't we write into the process a condition of the visa that if you assault a Jewish student on campus, you're out of here. You're gone.
If it was written in the statute and if it was broad enough to be not just be for Jews, but for all people that have experienced discrimination, regardless of who they are, I think that we should look at that. But I think until that is in law, what I'm basing this on is what the current statute says and what currently is being done.
Well, listen, I guess I don't understand the hesitation here at all. To me, this is an easy call, and I've urged the current Secretary of State, Secretary Rubio, to do this. I think he's got the authority to do it. My position is it would send an incredibly clear message. If you come to this country on a student visa, you are here as a guest of the United States for particular purposes. If you assault a Jewish student on campus, you ought to be out of here. And we ought to make it clear to people we are not going to tolerate it. We're not going to tolerate it for any reason. Can I just ask you while I have you here, Mr. Recklin?
Yeah,
I've heard you talk about DEI. I just want to be clear on this. You would agree, wouldn't you, that much of this DEI rhetoric has been weaponized against Jewish students? The DEI dialogue has been weaponized against them. They're called colonizers. They're called imperialists. They're called oppressors. It's the classic intersectionality DEI language. I'll give you some tangible examples. The DEI chair at MIT publicly issued statements calling Israel a genocidal apartheid state. You have the University of Washington's DEI office that sent out an email describing Israel as, once again, an unlawful and oppressive settler colonial apartheid state. The DEI program coordinator at Rutgers said to Jewish students, F you colonizer, F you Zionists. I mean, my point is, isn't it time to speak some truth to power here to these people and to say that Israel is not a colonizer state. It is not an apartheid state. Jewish students are not colonizers, and this kind of rhetoric shouldn't be weaponized against them. You'd agree with that, surely.
I would say that it's wrong to blame Jewish students for the actions of the state of Israel in any way, shape, or form.
And it's wrong to call the state of Israel a colonial apartheid state.
I would say that Israel right now, a number of different human rights organizations talk about them in that sense. Personally, I don't see Israel that way. I've been there many times. I have family that live there. I've been to the West Bank. I've enjoyed it. However, there are considerable issues regarding the occupation that need to be addressed, and inadequacies between how Palestinians live in the West Bank versus how Palestinian Israelis live in.
My time. I'm only interrupting you because my time has almost expired, and the chairwoman is being extremely strict on the time. So, but I just want to make this point because I think we're seeing it over and over and over, where you have actual campus apparatus, DEI apparatus on these campuses. These are departments, these are officials, these are professors who are weaponizing that against Jewish students. My question is, shouldn't we condemn that? No holds barred. Say that is wrong for DEI officials to be saying Israeli students are colonizers, Jewish American students are colonizers, Israel's an apartheid state. That is wrong, full stop. no conditions. Would you agree with that?
I would say that a lot of DEI programs need to actually bring into its anti-Semitism training, either going to other organizations, because so much of what is happening within the DEI
Or just be eliminated? Why don't we just eliminate the DEI programs and eliminate the kind of reverse discrimination against Jews that they are promoting?
I appreciate your passion.